We're good? All right. Well, good evening. I'm Martin Tyner with the Southwest Wildlife Foundation, and I'm coming from my living room. And we were hoping to have a nice presentation outside, out in the shade, in the lawn, under the trees. But unfortunately, we have 30 to 40-mile-an-hour winds blowing, and so that just wasn't possible. So, Scout, you got to put up with being in the house. And he would much rather be outside where he's a little more comfortable. I have a small house and small rooms, and so it's a little bit crowded for him. So he's just kind of looking around saying, "Why are we in the house? This is not a good place to be. We're supposed to be outside where I got room." So we're just kind of hanging out here, and we're here to answer your questions about the wildlife rescue, the foundation, falconry, whatever you have questions about.
How about a comment?
And so, sure, comments.
We just heard from Rachel who
What do you got?
says, I've been looking forward to this all day.
Well, I'm glad. Most of you know my dear friend Scout. He is our wildlife ambassador, and one of my falconry birds. A farm up in Wyoming was threatening to shoot him, and I was called in by the federal government to rescue him before he got shot. And Scout and I have been together. What have we been together? 15 years now,
I forget.
something like that. So we've been together quite some time. And please forgive how scrounchy he looks. We're right in the middle of the molt, which basically means he's dropping feathers and growing new feathers, and so he's kind of patchy looking, and he's not as pretty as he is in the wintertime when his feathers are perfect. So he's just outgrowing more feathers.
So I've got a couple of questions that people sent in. This one's from, well, actually, this was from a comment from Harper. She wants to know, he or she wants to know, what's the best way to start learning or how to get into doing animal rehab and care and such and getting into falconry. I've wanted to do it ever since I was little, and I want to dedicate my life to animal conservation.
Oh, that's a great question. The question's about getting into falconry and getting into wildlife rehabilitation and rescue, and that's actually two very different subjects. Let's start with falconry. In order to become a falconer, you need to first read every book on falconry that you can find. There's a written test that you must pass. The test is administered by your state fish and game. Once you pass the written test, you'll have all of your equipment inspected to make sure you have all you need to care for the bird properly. Then you must apprentice for 2 years under a general class or master class falconers. And after the end of the 2 years of apprenticeship, there's a variety of hawks and falcons you can have. You cannot have an eagle. Different game. So eagles are very different. Now, as far as wildlife rescue and rehab is concerned, that's administered again by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and the State Fish and Game. And to be honest with you, uh, you have to work in an established wildlife rescue facility. Um, both the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and most state fish and games are not really thrilled about people who do wildlife rescue, and so they basically make it very difficult to do the wildlife rescue, and because of that reason, most wildlife rehabbers over the last few years have just quit, and so there's getting to be fewer of them. Both the state fish and games and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service consider wildlife rescue as biologically insignificant, and they think it's a waste of time. So they're not really on board wishing to help us.
And the other half?
Which other half? Already talked about falconry and the wildlife rescue.
Okay, I'm
Is there
sorry.
another part to
I
it?
got distracted because I was looking at Scout.
Okay.
What is Scout's wingspan?
Well, Scout's wingspan is just about 6 feet, and
And
he is a large male golden eagle. The females are a third larger than the males, and so he's a big animal, but the females are even bigger.
and LW Kraus asks, why is the bird sticking its tongue out, panting?
Yeah, it's been quite warm, and bringing him in, he flapped around quite a bit. He really wanted to go soaring, and we couldn't with this 40-mile-an-hour wind. We obviously can't do that, and so he got himself kind of worked up. They overheat super easy, and when the temperature's above 70, we have to watch them to make sure that they don't overheat. And one of the reasons we're sitting right here, oh, there you go, huh? That's called a rouse, where he fluffs up and kind of stretches and relaxes. I'm sitting right in directly in front of the swamp cooler to blow cool air to help cool him off. Because these guys, when it gets warm, they'll go soaring. They'll go up to as high as 30,000 feet to stay cool. And so here on the ground, we have to make sure that they don't overheat. And like inside his chamber, he has an air conditioning unit in his chamber to help make sure he doesn't overheat during the summertime.
We've had a lot of questions about that 30,000 feet. How is that tracked? How do they know?
Well, actually, people have actually seen eagles from high altitude hot air balloons, and also from aircraft.
How did they get
Have
air?
seen fly by at 30,000 feet. Well, the way they get air is they're designed for it. It's probably a little tough for you guys to see, but if you look at his nostrils here, turn your head this way. Look at his nostrils, and you can see his nostrils are just exactly the same thing as a jet air intake going into jet engines. And so it's kind of ram air fed right into the lungs. And again, up at altitude, he's soaring. And because he's soaring, he's using virtually no energy whatsoever. So they can relax and just kind of cruise along at altitude. Very little exercise, very little energy, and the air is rammed right into the lungs.
Sam the Man asks, Martin, do you plan to breed Scout?
Do I plan to breed him? No, actually, that is kind of one of those things. Um, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service prohibits um, educational birds, or educational eagles, or falconry eagles to be used for captive breeding. Now, I do have a pair of prairie falcons that I put together as a breeding project, and hopefully they'll be laying eggs next year. And so I can do that with falcons. I can do that with hawks, but they won't let me breed golden eagles in captivity, at least at this point, until they change the regulations.
And someone asked in comments a few days ago about, in regards to the white-bellied bald eagle, if what if you think that would be a good animal as a wildlife ambassador?
I think the white-bellied bald would be a wonderful wildlife ambassador, but to become a wildlife ambassador, the truth of the matter is you have to be to the point where you just cannot be released to the wild. And I still have hopes of getting that white-bellied bald eagle back in the wild. So right now, there's no consideration of making it a wildlife ambassador. We don't handle it. We don't tame it. We don't cuddle with it like I do with Scout. Um, it's just kept completely wild, and in the hopes that when it grows all of its feathers back in, that it will be healthy and strong and be able to go to the wild where it belongs.
Would you consider keeping that bald eagle as a wildlife ambassador?
I would certainly consider that, but the problem with it is that I very well might not have a choice. Basically, if I determine that the bald eagle is non-releasable, it will not survive in the wild, then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service steps in and they make a determination as to what happens to the eagle. So whether they confiscate the eagle from me and take it and give it to somebody else, whether they take the eagle and give it to Native American tribes, it is strictly the choice of the federal government as to what happens to it. So I could make application, but to be really honest with you, there are a lot of priorities other than me who want bald eagles for a variety of different reasons.
Melinda asks, why doesn't he bite you? I think she means Scout.
Why doesn't Scout bite me? Well, he right now he's chewing on the glove and he's chewing on his Jessies and that kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter is he's kind of we've been together, like I said, about 15 years. He's a dear friend. And so, the only real reason that this eagle is going to hurt me is either I look like a rabbit, or if the eagle feels threatened and feels that it needs to defend itself. And even if it's on my glove and being handled by me, if something frightens him, he has a very strong, what we call a fight or flight instinct, which basically means if he can't get away from whatever frightens him, he attacks. And since I'm the closest, he would attack me. Does that make sense to everybody? So he is certainly a wild animal. He has to be respected like that. If and I do get bit and I do get clawed quite frequently. And anytime I get hurt by these guys, it's my fault because I have chosen to have them in my captivity. And so any damages or injuries are my fault and not Scout's fault.
Dawn
In
asks,
fact, go ahead.
Dawn
Go ahead.
asks, when you are feeding mice to an eagle who has just arrived and really sick, are they opening their beaks wide because they realize?
Go ahead. We're listening. He just
Okay.
he's just bored.
Are they opening their beaks wide because they realize you are feeding them, or is it a different reason?
No, they're opening their beak wide. In fact, most of the time you see have to open the beak with my hand to stuff the mice in. They're stressed and they're frightened, and oftentimes they're hot because they've been in a box being transported, and there's lots of reasons. But oftentimes I have to basically stick my pry the beak open, stick my finger into the mouth, and make enough room that I can put these mice in so they can swallow them.
Gregory has a comment. He said, if they are biologically insignificant, why would they care if you tried to render assistance to an animal in need?
Well, the problem is the way the laws work is that these are protected under the Federal Eagle Act. These are the bald eagle and the golden eagle are the two most protected animals in North America, and so the law basically says, you can't touch them. And anytime a law prohibits something, it basically it limits what can be done. And in order since that's the case, in order to do anything, you have to get a permit. And because I have to have a rehabilitation permit, an education permit, a falconry permit, propagation permit, and so on, because I have to have all of these permits, I have lots of paperwork. I have to write lots and lots and lots of reports about the animals and who's come in and the care that they've received, and were we able to get back to health, get them released back to the wild. Now I have to write these reports, which means somebody in the state and federal government has to read the reports, and they would just as soon not. And so what we end up with is government bureaucrats that they would much rather not put their time into working with wildlife rehabbers. They would much rather put their time into dealing with whole species and habitats more than individual animals.
We have a question about, there was someone who said they were watching a YouTube channel from Russia, and apparently to help with the cold, they would coat something on their feathers. And he's asking if that's anything you've done, what it is, or if you know anything about that.
Well, the truth of the matter is, these guys, cold is no problem. Scout and I can be out at 20 below zero, and he can be flying free and just enjoying the day. And I am dying of freezing, and I'm telling my eagle, I says, "Would you please fly fast? I'm dying out here. I'm so cold." So they take the cold really, really well. What they don't do is they don't take the heat. And so in the summertime, as we're getting to the warmer weather now, I have to make sure. I mean, when I transport them in his box, I put these artificial ice blocks that you put in your freezer, and they're kind of blue blocks of whatever that you freeze hard. And so his box, the whole floor of it's covered with these ice packs to keep him cool. Again, good air conditioning of the vehicle, and we always worry that if we have any kind of a maintenance problem on the vehicle that we're transporting one of these guys, if we're out in the Nevada desert heading for Las Vegas or Los Angeles or wherever, if I have a breakdown, there's a high probability that the eagle would die. And so everything has to be in very good condition. But in the wintertime, that's not an issue. In the wintertime, the colder the better.
We just want to send thank you to, looks like it's JJK. He just made a big donation, and he says, "No question, just a thank you to you, Susan, and your volunteers for what you all do."
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so very, very much. We appreciate that. Donations are how we exist, how we end up caring for all of the animals. And the video will come out soon, but we last Sunday we released back to the wild two peregrine falcons and a golden eagle.
Well, you're giving it
And
away.
I'm giving it away. These are our people. They should get in. They should be in the know.
All right.
And so, guys, we'll have more videos coming up. I currently have another red-tailed hawk coming up, and of course the bald eagle that we're waiting for it to grow its feathers. We've got 5 quail that have come in. I think we've got 3 or 4 hummingbirds, and then we've got some black phoebes, and we've done a bunch of robins and oh Lord knows, stripes and just all sorts of little critters are running around here that we're feeding and raising up and returning to the wild.
See, but now you just put all the pressure on me to get that release video edited and online. Just cut my time.
You know, DG, that's the one thing I don't worry about. You got to be the hardest working person in our organization for keeping things going for us, so we appreciate it.
So we got a question from Alex. He says, "What does it feel like to pet, for lack of a better word, an eagle?"
What does it feel like to pet an eagle? You know, petting. I mean, just the physical ability to touch one. You know, it's feathers. That's what it feels like. You know, it's not a whole lot different than petting a chicken or a duck as far as the feathers and the feel is concerned. To be in a position, in the incredibly rare position to say that one of my dearest friends on the planet is a full-grown wild eagle, I feel incredibly honored that Scout has chosen time and time and time again to stay with me, even though, you know, he's had the opportunity and the right to leave whenever he wanted.
Yeah, your best friend smacked me in the face with his wing.
Yeah, he's got some pretty big wings, and tell people anything within 15 feet of him when he flaps his wings is going to go flying.
Melinda asks, "How is Cirrus?"
Cirrus is wonderful. She's our prairie falcon, and Cirrus is with her mate, a male prairie falcon named Piper, and they're out in their chamber. And you know, we don't use them for shows anymore because we want them to pair bond to each other. So we pretty much leave them to be a wild pair of prairie falcons in the hopes of them raising young prairie falcons so that we can return the young prairie falcons back to the wild.
Sean asks, "How many birds do you think you rehab and release back to the wild?"
How many have I rehabbed and returned to the wild? You know, the number is in the thousands. I really have no idea. You know, I've been doing this for over 50 years. So, a lot.
Well, we're going to have to recap, I guess, again and again. Another question, how is the white-bellied bald eagle coming along?
The white-bellied bald eagle is coming along fine. It's perfectly healthy, and it's running around the chambers and so on. He still has a long, long way to go before he will have enough feathers grown in that he will be able to fly. So it's going to be a really long-term project, and I can see him with us for another year before he's got enough feather growth that we can release him.
Imperfect Citizen asks, "How intelligent are they?" I think he means Scout, he or she.
Yeah, he wasn't talking about me. Everybody knows that doesn't apply to me. You know, the golden eagle of all birds of prey, the golden eagle is the most intelligent. They are by far the most affectionate and the most gentle, the most mischievous. They're just truly a wonderful animal to work with. Realistically, about the only animal that I would consider more intelligent than an eagle is a couple of the great primates and maybe a couple of sea mammals. But other than that, yes, that's my puck. Other than that, it's really hard to believe anything else could be more intelligent than these animals.
Okay.
Oftentimes, they measure intelligence by brain size compared to body mass. And if you actually go with that measurement, the golden eagle, uh, his brain to body mass percentages is greater than ours. So I have no doubt that my eagle is smarter than everybody else I know.
Our friend and volunteer Fran Tucker just made a donation for us, so big thank you.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
for.
you, Tucker.
And okay, Gregory asks, "Hello, Martin. Thanks for all those videos. It helps me understand birds of prey. Martin, why is there so much difference between falconry care and rehab center care?"
Why is there so much difference between falconry care and rehab center care? Because we're trying to do two completely different goals. Now, falconry, what we're attempting to do is to build a relationship, a trust, so that we can have these apex predators work with us, and not to have them do anything they don't normally do, but to have them allow us to come along and participate in what it is they do. Now this eagle right here hunts jackrabbits in the wild. That's what he does, and he allows me to come along where I take the leather straps off. He flies free. He goes thousands of feet in the sky, flies with the wild eagles, and he follows me as I flush out jackrabbits for him to catch. So basically, he's the hunter, I'm his dog. And that truly is the relationship that we have, is that he trusts me and he works with me and he allows me to participate in his life. Now, with the wildlife rehabilitation, we don't want the animals to be acclimated and to socialize with us. I don't want them to think humans are good. I don't want them to say, "Oh, gee, there's a person. Let me fly down and see if he'll feed me." I don't want that to happen. I want them to be wild, and so we do not use falconry techniques in order to acclimate the rehab animals to humans and human activity. In fact, to be honest with you, I want them to stay as far away from humans as possible. So it's two different process for two different outcomes.
We've got a clarification when asked about coating on the eagle's feathers. It's from
Mm-hmm.
Ms. Honey Bunny. She said, "I heard owls coat their feathers and told that our hands are far too oily for their feathers. Is that the case with eagles?"
Well, that's the case with all birds. Now, all birds have a small gland right at the base of the tail, right back here, a small gland that secretes a powder, and they basically, when they preen, which is basically when they stick their heads and start straightening their feathers with their beak, they'll stick their head back to that little gland, get some of that powder, and spread the powder on the feathers. This is why when I touch him, I get a little bit of powder on my hands because he puts that powder on his feathers, and that powder is their water repellent that helps to keep them out in the wild from becoming drenched when it rains or snows. And so now, yes, we do have oils on our hands, and so people come up to me all the time, says, "Like, can I pet your eagle?" And it's like, no. If I let everybody pet Scout, it will wear off all of that powder off his feathers and actually can do feather damage. But you see, most of the time you'll see me petting him with the back of my hand, and though I do the front of the hand a little bit, and it's the fingertips mostly, but it's the back of the hand so that I don't have as much oil on my hands, so he doesn't get the oils from my fingers on his body.
You mentioned in your book that there's rare circumstances where you will let someone actually touch the eagle.
Well, that's yeah, that is that's certainly a case by case basis, and that's I have had individuals come to my shows that when I do my wildlife programs that are blind, and these people will come up and I'll visit with them a little bit, and I can give them all the description in the world about what an eagle is and what it looks like, but it's very, very hard. It's like trying to have a blind person understand what red is. Red is red, and it's hard to describe. And so for that, especially if the bird is in a good mood and everybody's being quiet, I can take the hand of a blind person and I can very gently have them touch the bird's back and run down the back and the feathers. I can even have them, as long as everything's good, feel the talons to see how absolutely sharp and deadly they are, and allow them to, with their hands, to experience what an eagle is. And even at that, I don't know that they truly, even with their hands, they can't really see it. And I always wonder, how that picture develops in their brain as to what an eagle is. But I do try to help on occasion uh, people with special needs be able to see an eagle with their hands.
How often have you done that?
Oh, you know, maybe once every other year. So it's very rare.
Off Road with Freddy says, I gotta say, I love your videos to watch, especially in Corona times. Peace.
Well, thank you.
And Jay
Yeah,
says,
go ahead.
you go ahead.
With the coronavirus, unfortunately, the coronavirus has stopped my wildlife educational outreach programs, and it's been a kind of a hard thing for me to not be out there and provide the wildlife education that it has been my life's work for the last 50 years. And so these opportunities to visit with you folks um, has really helped me feel a little more comfortable that I'm kind of getting the word out and get people to see how beautiful they are, to understand them, even though I'm not doing it in person.
And Martin the Caveman is just getting to be a total expert on Google Meet here. He's got this computer stuff down, so we're even thinking about a podcast. Okay, so Jay says, saw you guys already installed the bridge and restrooms at the Cedar Canyon Nature Park. What's the next stage and ETA for the park?
The next stage is actually quite boring. The next stage is we do have to get a water system built at the park so that we can have culinary water on the north side of Coal Creek as well as the south side, and we have to get that done before we start. Once the water system is in, then we can start building a visitor center, natural history museum, an eagle flight chamber, vet clinics, and the rest of our rehab facilities and our habitats. But we have to get a water system built, and that's very, very, very expensive. It's taking some time.
Karen asks, have you ever helped a condor?
I have helped condors. I've had when I lived in California, I had some condors come into rescue when I was the curator of birds of prey at Busch Gardens in California. I did have an opportunity to while I was in California, 40 plus years ago, to rappel off a cliff and band a baby condor. And then there's been a couple of times that I've been called in to babysit condors that basically were hanging around civilization to make sure that nobody hurt them or bothered them until they flew away. But as far as having a condor here at my rescue center, no, not yet.
Brittany asks, why is Scout unable to be released back to the wild?
Well, Scout's kind of a unique case. Basically, there was a farmer up in Wyoming that was threatening to shoot him. He felt he was a threat to his livestock. And I was called in by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to go rescue him before he got shot. Now, here's the deal. These are migratory. They are hardwired in their brains to return to where they learned to fly. And so the agreement is that I go rescue him, remove him from Wyoming, but he is never, ever allowed to go back to Wyoming. Loose, that's exactly where he'll go. He'll go right back to Wyoming, and the farmer will have the right to shoot him. And so birds like this are, if they are rescued, then they are basically placed in a zoological park in a cage for the rest of their lives as an educational animal. And the nice thing about Scout is because he's a falconry bird, he gets to fly free and gets to hunt. So he kind of gets the best of both worlds, both as an educational animal and as a falconry bird. But if we turn him loose, there's a high probability that he will be shot. And we do fly him through the courtship season, which basically about mid-January into February is the courtship season, and he does fly free then. And if he finds a pretty little lady eagle that's cuter than I am, he will fly away and never come back. And he has that right. Now, if he pair bonds to a female golden eagle here, he'll stay here. Does that make sense to everybody, I hope? And so, he and I have been together for 15 years, um, by his choice, and which is just absolute proof that I'm adorable because he's chosen to stay with me. And so, but if he ever does fly away, the hope is that he will find a pretty little lady eagle uh, within the area and bond to her and stay here and not go back to Wyoming.
Gregory asked, do you ever require the assistance of a veterinarian?
Yes, I do have three veterinarians here in Cedar City. Now, please understand, guys, we don't have an avian vet here. They're livestock, small animal kind of general practitioner vets. And so, with my skills and expertise, I'm far more qualified to deal with the Raptors. And so I basically go to the vet and say, "Here's my problem. Here's the medications I need. Here's the X-ray I need to take. This is what we need to do, and we can use the vet's skills and my skills combined to deal with just about anything and everything that comes along. Now, because we're a volunteer organization, the veterinarians in the area feel obligated to provide their services at cost. And the problem with doing that, and I shouldn't say a problem because we love it that they're willing to help us and provide the cost of materials. But one of the issues are that if you take everything to your veterinarian, you will burn them out very, very quickly. And so I do certainly 90% of the vet work myself, so as not to burden my veterinarians, except when I absolutely have to have their skills, especially their surgical skills, in order to do something that I just can't do.
Okay, I want to send a thank you out to Noodle Mass, who just sent a donation for us.
Well, thank you.
And we have a question from, I, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce, BAKR. He or she asks, how would you compare the personality of, say, an eagle to that of an owl or a parrot? Just curious.
Very, very different. Um, First of all, a parrot or the citizens are flock animals. They live in groups. They have a social hierarchy within the group. They use the group for protection, where your apex predators are primarily um, uh, solo animals. They prefer to hunt alone and be alone, except for during the nesting season. So that in itself is a big difference between the parrots and the birds of prey. Now, an owl is in most cases it's a very primitive bird of prey, and it basically doesn't have anywhere near the intelligence. They can be very sweet, but they don't have the intelligence that certainly that the eagle has. Um, and in most cases, the owls are a little bit more docile. Not in all cases, but in most cases, they can still be dangerous. They have razor sharp talons, but they don't have the silly outgoing personality that I have in the eagle. Not to say I've had owls that I've rescued that were just adorable to work with, but the eagle is kind of the pinnacle of that.
Camille comments, thank you for all you do. Justin comments, hey Martin, love everything you do. I love you all, God bless. And Cheryl asks, what was your first rescue ever?
My first rescue ever, and that is in my book. And if Susan's listening, can you grab a copy of the book, Sue? Um, in my book, I talk about my very first wildlife rescue. It was a barn owl. I was 12 years old, and a neighbor knew that I liked birds, and found a baby barn owl on the ground, and I brought the barn owl in. And to be honest with you, I raised the barn owl up. I went to the library, got all the information I could. I was just a little kid and really didn't know how to do it properly. The local game warden, basically, I I know Susan's coming. Come on, guys. Uh,
Scout is not fond of Susan.
yep.
That's his one character flaw.
Come here. Thank you. Yeah, it's okay, big guy. I know. Susan is the sweetest person on the planet, and she loves the animals, but she's a little bit fidgety, and that makes the birds nervous. And so, yeah, Scout's just never been real fond of Susan. But anyway, for all of you, there's my book, Healer of Angels, and we sell this as a fundraiser for our wildlife rescue. The eagle that's on the front cover sitting there with me, that's Scout. That's him right there. And Scout has autographed the book. If you want a very unique autograph, he's autographed the book, and I don't know if you can see it very well, but there is his footprint. That's the only book in the world autographed by a wild eagle. And again, the profits from the sale of the book go to our wildlife rescue to help us feed the animals. And the story about the barn owl is in more detail, but it's here in the book for everybody. And it's in the first few chapters of the book. There's that story.
Can anybody get one of those books with his footprint and your footprint?
They do get the book now. If you buy it at Barnes and Noble and Amazon and those kinds of things, you don't get the autographed copy. But if you buy directly off our website, the price is the same. Then you get the autographed copy signed by Scout, signed by both Susan and I as well.
No footprint from you, though.
Well, my foot's too big.
Oh, all right.
To fit on the book.
LW asks, have you rehabbed a skunk or porcupine?
A skunk or a porcupine? I have not. We do have porcupines up here, though I have not had one come into our rescue center. I get calls for skunks every year. The problem with skunks is, again, the state fish and game prohibits us from rescuing skunks. It's a rabies issue, and so they will not allow us to rescue skunks.
Sam asks, why does Scout keep pecking at your pocket? Does he smell food in it?
Well, actually, birds of prey have virtually no sense of smell. In fact, most birds have no sense of smell. And so he's not smelling anything. What he is doing actually is I usually keep my glasses case in my pocket here, and he likes to steal my glasses and tear up the case and throw them out into the audience when I'm doing shows. So he's looking in my pocket to see if there's something he can steal to tease me with.
N.A. Susie asks, are golden eagles as intelligent as a large parrot?
They are every bit as intelligent, maybe a little more so, but they are intelligent in very, very different ways. And so, like my golden eagle here, he remembers every rabbit he ever killed. And oftentimes we can be out in the field hunting. If we're not having much success, he'll fly and walk under a bush where there was a rabbit that he killed 5 years ago, just to see if there might be another rabbit there. And so it's amazing, their memory.
Carol asks, what's the farthest you've driven to rescue an animal?
Well, I rescued him out of Wyoming, and that was about 600 miles. Yeah, that's probably about as far.
Kath asks, can Scout see looking straight ahead?
Yes, all apex predators and birds of prey are apex predators. They have what we call binocular vision. So their vision is straight ahead, where most prey-based species, their heads are a little more on the side, and so they have greater peripheral vision to watch out from the predators coming from behind. So yes, all birds of prey have binocular vision.
I think maybe Syed, S-Y-E-D, asks, or says first and asks, you are a wonderful human being. May God bless you. I wanted to ask you, have you ever rescued a black kite? Are the black kite's talons dangerous?
No, I've never rescued a black kite. We don't certainly have them here. I have rescued a black-shouldered kite in California, and the kites, their talons are very, very sharp, but their feet are relatively small, and so it's instead of like somebody taking and puncturing your hand with big 16-penny nails or small spikes into your hand like these things, a kite is more like getting someone puncturing your hand with a staple. And so it's it's a little painful, but it's not nearly as dangerous.
Rocky Codeman asks, hey Martin, what do you think is better for falconry, leather Jessies or paracord Jessies?
And I do use both, leather cord, parachute cord, and leather Jessies. It really depends on the bird. I tried parachute cords on Scout here, but the truth of the matter is he will take parachute cord and he will have them chewed off in about 10 minutes because he just thinks that's really fun to chew on. And this is very, very thick. This is buffalo. It's very heavy and very thick for him. And a new pair of buffalo Jessies will last him a month before he chews them off. So it really depends on the bird. Parachute cord works really good with a lot of birds that aren't big chewers, but he tears them off.
Gidget asks, have you heard of the prehistoric bird Argentavis? Argentavis? I don't know how to say that. Argentavius?
If it's the one that I'm thinking of, it is the largest flying bird known in the world, and there was a small documentary on that not too long ago. Um, Really, it's like a condor that was like um, 4 or 5 times bigger than a California or Andean condor. If it's the one that I'm thinking of, and if it's not, I apologize. But that's just what comes to mind.
Sam asks, Martin, have you started using your triage center on your property?
I have. It has been absolutely wonderful. The refrigerator and freezer are completely full of dead rats and quail and rabbits and those kinds of things. I've moved a lot of our triage first aid supplies in there, and so yes, guys, what an amazing gift! Thank you so much. It has been wonderful to have that building to work with. I don't have to do all of my triage work on the kitchen table. So we're very grateful.
Connie asks, how is Scout's relationship with Cody compared to Bell's? Does Scout squawk or not care?
You know, Bell uh, doesn't like Cody, and Bell will squawk, and Bell will threaten Cody. Scout doesn't threaten anybody; he just hurts them. Basically, if Scout feels that he doesn't want Cody around, he won't hesitate grabbing Cody with those big talons and hurting Cody. And so we certainly have to keep them separate.
Cheryl asks, while you're talking about condors, what is their life expectancy?
If everything goes really, really well, 30 to 40 years is about what's considered normal. If unfortunately, the condors really are a dinosaur to the point that their ecosystem no longer exists, and it's only the only reason they're called California condors is because that was the last area where the condors were feeding on dead sea mammals and those kinds of things. But the environment that the condor really needs, we're reintroducing them out here just to the southeast of me here, out of the Grand Canyon and out in Zions and Marble Canyon, and it's beautiful to see the condors fly. I love them to death, but it's in this modern world, the condors are just not meant to live here any longer, and so I'm hopeful because of captive breeding that we'll be able to keep bringing the numbers up to the point that we will have a stable population, and maybe they will evolve to the point that they can exist in our modern world that we have today. That's my hope, because it would just crush me to think that there's no more condors in our skies, but it is truly an uphill battle.
So this goes back to the reason why Scout needed to be rescued. LW asks, is a golden eagle actually a threat to livestock? I call horse pucky.
Well, the truth of the matter is, a condor really is not a threat to livestock. What generally happens is the
Uh-oh. Martin's froze.
sheep or
There
something
it is.
and will fly down and start to feed. The farmer drives up and sees the eagle feeding and thinks it's a threat that it killed the livestock, In most cases, it's just cleaning up the carcass for the farmer. So it's more of a misunderstanding more than it's a threat. And so sometimes it's really not worth arguing the point. Just rescue the animal.
Jane says Scout has the most beautiful eyes. He's amazing. And then Jane says, so are you, Martin.
Oh, well, thank you. My eye's not nearly as pretty as his, though. Those eyes are truly remarkable. He's got he can see approximately 8 or 6 times further than we can. He has 8 times the number of light sensitive cells, the rods and cones in the eye than we have. Uh, this guy can actually spot a jackrabbit 5 miles away, and he does. And so there's been many a time when he's been out soaring, spot a jackrabbit and went and killed it, and I had to go track him down. He was 5 miles away eating his rabbit.
Julie asks, is Scout imprinted, and does he see you as his mate?
No, Scout is not imprinted. He was full grown and wild when I rescued him, so he doesn't see me as his mate. I think he really sees me as his dog. Basically, I'm his servant. He's the hunter. My job is to flush rabbits like a dog would do. My job is to retrieve him and the rabbit that he's caught and killed. My job is to assist him. And so, he truly is in charge of the relationship.
DS asks, what is the life expectancy of golden eagles?
Golden eagles in the wild average about 20 years, if all goes well. In captivity, they will more than double that. So he will be around for 40 plus years if all goes well.
Raymond comments, hi, I am new to this channel and I am subscribed and I like this video.
Oh, well, thank you. Welcome.
Gail asks, do eagles mate for life?
Eagles do mate for life. Now, that's not to say that if one of their mates dies, that they don't have the opportunity to choose a new one, but that might take 2 or 3 years before that happens. But yes, they don't spend their time with each other year round. So basically, around mid-January, my eagles will come together from wherever they've been living. They'll come to their nesting sites. They will court. The male has this beautiful courtship ritual that he does to impress the female, and then they will stay together until about late July, and then the chicks are flying on their own and doing their own thing, and then the male and female part company until next winter.
Fran comments, hi to Susan, didn't realize she was there. And
yes, Susan's in the other room watching and trying to stay out of the way because, like I said, Scout's a little fussy around Susan.
Christopher asks, is there an eagle species, a dream species, that you would love to work with?
I really had the opportunity to work with an awful lot of eagles. A lot of exotic eagles when I was the curator of birds of prey at Busch Gardens, and there really are just to try.
Uh-oh. Come back, Martin, come back. They kind of have the same expression on their faces, don't they? Well, how long should we give them before we decide something's up? Come back, Martin, come back. Uh-oh, I think we lost our boys, guys. Let me see. Hopefully he might try to... He's either going to call me or he's going to try to log back in if he knows he's frozen. And it might be on my side too. So let's just give it a couple of minutes, see if he can come back to us. And I'll try to call him to see if that does any good. I'll put him on speaker, and you guys can hear too, maybe. Well, got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. Stuff just stuck with the web geek. Try to call Martin again and see what he wants to do. I hate to end it because then we gotta find the feed again, but... Oh, ooh, look, it's just me. Martin's left. So he might be trying to come back in. So let's just wait on a minute.
There we go.
You coming back? You gonna sign back in?
I'm signing back
Signing
in.
back to my
Oh, there he
computer.
is. Yay, he's back.
Yeah, the internet shut down for a minute.
Okay. Yay, we held out.
Sorry, guys, my internet connection just dropped off.
I just passed the basket around while you were gone. Took
Yeah, I'm back up.
donations.
Oh well, thank you. Yeah, I apologize. Internet connection. The internet connection just collapsed on me. So
Did you sign?
technology, what can I tell you?
Did you sign back in, or
Pardon?
did you sign back in, or did it come back in?
No, I signed back in.
Oh, cool. Good
I
move.
just saw my little toolbar down below that the internet had shut off, and so I turned it off and turned it back on.
Awesome. See, I had to tell you guys, he's getting to be an internet stud. He's all that. So now we need some more questions. I was just scrolling up and he went away. Martin, this is from Sam, have you ever rehabbed an ostrich?
I have worked with ostriches. I've never rehabbed one for the simple fact we don't live in Africa. And so in order to rehab, you have to live within that environment. So that's not an issue. But I did work for a company that had 6 ostriches that we used for movie and television work.
Sherry asks, hey Martin and Susan, how often does Scout mold? I think molt, is that right? And does
Yes.
he get grumpy? Stay safe, guys. Love ya.
Well, yes, all birds molt. They molt once a year. His molt takes about 6 months, and so that's kind of where he's at right now. Is in the middle of his molt. That's why he looks so shabby right at the moment. Does he get grumpy? Yes, they do. Like I said, they're just like you and I. They have their own personalities and their own likes and dislikes and things. And it really is. Let me get the plastic moved over, so hopefully keep him from pooping on our floor. There we go. So and he has people that he likes and dislikes, and so again, they're just intelligent. They have personalities just like the rest of us.
We just got a donation from Lawrence T83. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Lawrence.
Has Scout ever bitten you?
Has Scout ever bitten me? I get bit almost every day. And most of the time with Scout, he doesn't bite me because he's mad or anything else. He usually bites me because he's playing, and he thinks it's he likes to steal things from my pockets. He does like to pull buttons off my shirt. He likes to take my glasses off and throw them out to the audience. He likes to be playful and mischievous. And sometimes with his play, he draws blood. He'll sometimes reach over and bite a chunk of flesh out of my hand and smile at me, just because he thinks it's funny. Yes, you do. You think it's funny. But that's just the way they are. And look at all these. My gosh, look at all these feathers going everywhere. Like I said, he's just molting like mad. You're dumping feathers everywhere. We're gonna have to vacuum when I put you away. You got feathers all over the house, kiddo.
Lydia asks, hello Martin.
Oh, leave that alone.
Don't eat that.
Yeah, don't eat the earbud wire.
Technical difficulties. The eagle has eaten our equipment. Lydia says, hello, Martin and Susan. Is there a nearby water source where these great raptors, like bald eagles, congregate during their migration?
Well, actually, down here, we do have a lot of bald eagles come in for the migration. There isn't a great water source down here. There is up in Utah Lake and the Great Salt Lake, Willard Bay. There's some great places where eagles congregate during migration. But the ones down here, we have a few little ponds and things that they can drink from. But mostly they're eating roadkill instead of fish. And so mostly they're just scavenging along the roadways, more so than fishing like they do up in the Pacific Northwest.
Ellen says, I just finished your book and loved it. Many people asked to borrow it, but I told them to order it from you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad people like my silly stories, and it's been a lot of fun to share my life stories with people.
And we have a thank you to send out to Birdie Mom Carol, who just made a donation.
Oh, thank you so very much.
And I think we might have, yes, and also Allison Nola sent another donation.
Oh, well,
More
thank you,
thanks.
Allison. We appreciate it.
Sherry says, I love everything you do, Martin. How much does Scout weigh?
Scout weighs about 8 pounds. That's his flying weight. This time of year, he's kind of fat and sassy, and so he's up over 9 pounds.
Interesting, we have Stella Brown Studios asks, have you ever rescued a mouse?
Have I ever rescued a mouse? Yeah. The most recent, we rescued a rat. We had someone bring us a little wild wood rat that up to us. They found it when they were out walking, and this little baby rat was, on the walking path, and they just felt really bad about it, and they called us up and says it's the stupidest thing. Would you be willing to do that? And we says, of course. And so we had the first time we've ever rescued a wood rat. Some people call them a pack rat, and so we got him. Had to bottle raise him. He was the size of a peanut when he first came in. This little itty bitty thing. And we got him bottle fed and raised up back in the wild where there are other wood rats, and so he can fulfill his biological destiny and be a wild rat. And people ask me, why would you do that? Why would you spend your time and energy to rescue something like that? And the truth of the matter is, just like everything, just like this eagle here, all animals in the wild have their biological niche. They have the thing that they do that's very important to the ecosystem. And so I've rescued scorpions and tarantulas on it. So any critter that needs help will help, and we try to put them back in the wild. So if somebody calls up and says they've got a rattlesnake in their backyard, we'll pick up the rattlesnake, and then we'll take it out and put it out where it's not around people, so the rattlesnake will have a good life and the people won't worry about getting bit.
Jay asks, we see a lot of videos of Martin and Belle do falconry hunting together. Martin mentions he also goes with Scout. Do you go to the same areas, and any chance we can see Martin and Scout in action sometime?
Well, the difference with Scout is Belle flies from my glove. And with Belle, she allows other people in the field with her. And so when we're out with Belle, if somebody were to come out and I'm going hunting with Belle, they can come along. I'll hand them a glove. They can put the glove on, and Belle will fly and land on their glove, land on my glove, and she'll use them as portable perches, just like she uses me, and that's wonderful. Scout, on the other hand, is very, very defensive of his territories. He doesn't like strangers in his field. Doesn't like other people coming along, and so for the most part, it's just Scout and I, and I'm so busy concentrating on Scout and what we're doing that I just really have very little time. I've taken some video of flying him, but very little, just because I'm too intensely involved in the animals.
Sorry, that was the alarm on my iPad. It's time for Niska to get his medicine.
Oh, okay.
But that's all right. He can wait a little bit.
Okay, so that's it. It's basically one of the problems with Scout is I had him out with a photographer that offended him to no end, and as I said, eagles remember everything, and so Scout does not like strangers in his field. He just really, really doesn't. So again, I respect that. That's his choice. It's not my decision to force him to do something he doesn't want to do. And so I don't want to put anyone in danger, because he's a dangerous animal.
Well, we just hit the 60-minute mark.
Well, good. If there's, I guess we can wind it down. Is there any last questions with anybody, or that we can ask before we call it a night?
One more question?
Sure.
Okay, from BB. I've always wondered how birds of prey can hunt snakes and seemingly not get bitten. Have you encountered any birds that have been bitten by snakes in your experience?
I have never had a bird come in with a venomous snake bite. And though I can imagine that it happens, and one of the things that actually protects them from a venomous snake bite is the snake bites, and all of the feather here, the snake, you can see all this feather coming up right here. The snake will bite into the feathers and not actually get into the skin. When they hunt a snake, they spread their wings wide, and so there's this huge target of the wings, and there's virtually no skin there except for on the leading edge of the wing. And so the snake bites at the wing and obviously doesn't get anything. And then the bird of prey's job is to grab the snake by the head. Now, if it grabs the snake by the body and the snake turns around and bites the bird's foot, the bird's going to die. If it bites, now with eagles, they don't have scales, and that's a little bit different. Most birds have scales down the leg here, but the golden eagle has feathers all the way down the leg, so this is skin. So if he gets bit into the skin, that could certainly be the end of him. I have had one of my birds catch a snake, but it wasn't a poisonous one. It was a gopher snake, and it was a large hawk, and it flew off and dove down. I went running over there, and by the time I got there, I was watching the last of the snake's tail going down the throat of the hawk. And birds of prey have what we call a crop, and that's a pocket. You can see in here. I can put my finger all the way in there up to my knuckles. Well, basically, that's a pocket right there, and that's where they store food. And so as they eat, that expands out. It will become the size of a softball in storing food, and it'll store there until their gizzard down here. They don't have a stomach, they have a gizzard until the gizzard is empty, and then they put some of the food down into the gizzard. Well, I got to the hawk, and its crop was bulging out because it had a whole snake in there, and the snake was wiggling and moving and swirling, and just watching this thing roll and tumble inside the crop. I know. Oh my God. And so, that was pretty gross to have to go home with a hawk with a crop full of snake that was still alive.
Yep, sounds like it. That feather just went across the camera.
Yeah. Like you said, the poor guy, he is just dropping feathers everywhere. I'm going to have to clean the whole house when we're done here today.
So is it
Well,
sign-off
guys,
time?
I guess it's sign-off time, and thank you so very, very much for joining us. And we'll try to do a little more of this. And please, if you have questions about falconry, about our wildlife rescue and the work we do, that's what we're here for, trying to help. And please, if you like animal stories, I'll do that one more time. Healer of Angels, buy it off the website. You buy it off the website, we get the profits instead of Barnes & Noble, and it helps us feed the animals. So guys, you have been wonderful, great questions, and I hope everybody enjoyed seeing my bud, my sweet boy. Yes, you are. And we'll talk to you guys again soon, I promise.